Good morning. I'd like to start with a small poetry that I've written myself. It's titled The Expensive Misadventure. Every clone of innumerable faceless men, struggling to carve for itself a niche, an identity that is its very own. As dust is raked, clouds are sent up. A melee ensues that ushers within, feelings shattered, relationships broken, and examining the self inflicted wounds, the grim realization was not the price of ambition too high.
Life is interesting. Life is full of surprises. Life is a challenge. Life is a mixture of joy and sorrows. In life, greater the responsibilities, greater are the challenges. However, gradually the pressure builds up and starts taking a personal toll on oneself. Time passes quickly. It's been 36 years since I had joined surgery, out of which 33 years have been in brain and spine surgery. And out of these 33 years, for 3 years, I've been the director of an institute of national importance. It's been a life of mounting stresses. So, how does one cope up personally amidst the daily demands of one's time, energy, and mental peace? How does one retain a personal space, areas of creativity, and that spark of light or scintillance? So, today's lecture, I'd like to share with you my personal commandments for personal reconciliation. I must admit, sometimes I'm successful in implementing them, and sometimes I'm not. So, the first section of my talk relates to the near crash landing of my surgical career. So, with a lot of trepidation in my PG posting, I took surgery as a career and was assigned to a general surgery unit. And for 3 months, there was no operation theater. Only countless hours of duty, emergencies during all waking hours, trying to squeeze in time to study and complete my mandatory research work, and occasionally trying to catch up on sleep. There is a famous saying: a surgeon can sleep whenever there is time and wherever there is space. There was also added apprehension, fear of failure, expectations to be fulfilled. And then suddenly, after 3 months, I get the call to come to the operation theater. And I was the junior most in the entire unit. So I was assigned with the chief resident to the surgical theater of the chief of surgery. He was a mentor, but a man of few words, very strict. He demanded absolute dedication to profession. He was outstanding and a very fast surgeon. To summarize, I was terrified of him. So he was a very fast surgeon. He will move from one operating room to another operating room, performing surgery in one, then moving to the other in record time. And so I joined his operation room as a second assistant, while my chief resident was actually assisting him. So first day, he completed all his surgery. And then he saw me, he said, "Oh, here is a new person who has come." So after he has sutured the skin sutures, he lifted up all the thread and said, "Cut." And I took the scissors in my left hand because I'm a left-handed surgeon. And I cut once, the thread would not cut. I cut again, the thread would not cut. And I cut the third time, and the thread would not cut. And there was perspiration all over my face. He gently took the scissors from my hand, and in one smooth flow, he cut all the sutures and then moved to the other operation theater. I couldn't sleep that night. I said, "Oh my God, here I have taken up a surgical career, and I cut sutures. I said, I must go to his operation theater again. So the next day, I again went as second assistant to his operation theater. And over his mask, he saw me and he says, "Hey, here is this guy who can't even cut sutures." And he's come again to my operation theater. He seemed to be saying, yeah. The same thing happened the second day. He completed his surgery very fast, did all the suturing, skin suturing, and then lifted up all the thread for me to cut. Again, I held the scissors in my left hand and cut once, and cut second time, and cut third time. And lo and behold, the thread would not cut. This time, I was shattered. I went home and I said that if tomorrow the same thing happens in the next reshuffle, in the next PG reshuffle, I will take up medicine as a career and forget about surgery. So the third day, I went again. And he looked at me with piercing eyes. Oh, this guy has come again. And he completed his surgery. Again, handed me the scissors. And again, it would not cut. And I said, oh my God, that's the end. Today was the culmination of my grand surgical career. The grand career had grandiosely disappeared on the third day of my OR posting. However, there was a senior theatre nurse who was assisting him. And he said in a tone of impatience and affection, "Doctor, hold the scissors in your right hand. We don't have all the day." In my moment of revelation, I either changed the scissors to my right hand, realizing that the blades of the usual scissors are made to facilitate the actions of a right-handed person. The thread cut like butter. There were no smiles or words exchanged, and the entire team dispersed, focusing on the next patient. I very much doubt if any of the people in the operating room remember that minor incident after 36 years. But I learned several lessons that day, and I still hold the scissors in my right hand. The first lesson is, do not be too hard on yourself. Do not blame yourself for every issue that you encounter. There are hidden and simple solutions behind every problem waiting to be discovered. The second is, don't be afraid to fail. Fail early and fail fast. Fail again. Fail better each time. Third, in the first 6 months of any job, do not be judgmental, either with yourself or with your situation. Fourth, indecision, being in a spot and being in a situation where one is not sure of oneself, is an integral part of everyone's life and learning. Accept it. And finally, accept differences in people, respect them, and do not make these differences the entire focus of your attention. Let me come to the second part of my speech, and I'm sure each one of you will empathize with it. The title is Procrastination or Getting into the Zone. I have always known that I have the whole year ahead of me before an exam is due. In fact, I also know the date, that this is the date when the exam is going to be held after 1 year. My thesis examiner several times had reminded me that your deadline for submitting the thesis is this particular date. And yet, throughout my medical career, I have often wondered why it is always that I submit the document required on the last date when no more extension is actually possible. I'm sure each one of you have come to exactly the same conclusion. When we've had the whole year ahead of us to meet our deadlines, why on earth did we get into a situation where we must drive ourselves into a state of frenzy, pulling our hair out and having sleepless nights? I'm sure it resonates with all of you. Having researched carefully on the most willing participant, that is me, I have come to the following conclusion. What we are doing is not procrastination. It is getting into a zone where, due to consciously trying to achieve a sense of stress, we also reach a sense of heightened awareness, alertness, and sensibility. It enhances our capacity to absorb or be creative. In this state of fight or flight, our mind accepts the finality. Now I don't have any more escape routes. Our capacity to absorb, assimilate, and regurgitate information becomes completely heightened. You have realized that whenever there is stress in your examination paper, facts will come out that you write on the examination paper that you realize you did not even know existed in your mind. And that is how the power of stress comes forth. Therefore, what are the lessons that we learn from this experience? The trick to learn is to achieve this stage of heightened performance even when there is no pressure of time. Occasionally and at will, train to reach this heightened state of awareness even when there are no deadlines to meet and no environmental influences to escalate it. Soldiers and top class athletes train themselves to reach this heightened state of enhanced performance at will and exceed expectations at that particular moment. Our all knowing mothers have been suggesting this from time immemorial. It actually echoes in my mind every time she would say it. Child, sit down and phase out every distraction that you have. Concentrate to the point of meditation to erase for a little time any devilish thought that is trying to save you from the focusing on the contents of your book. Understand your coursework much in advance and then read the subject matter repeatedly to not only remember it but to assimilate it. We never bothered at that time. Now, every time we want to do something worthwhile, we work ourselves up into a trance like state, just as advised by our mother. And once this state is voluntarily achieved and without pressure of time, it is much less stressful. It does resonate, doesn't it? Let me come to the third and the final section of my talk. It's about two real life neurosurgical scenarios. So, the first scenario is I'm in the operating room, operating myself on a patient, and the entire procedure is going on well. And then suddenly, bleeding starts in the operating room. And what happens in the operating room? The anesthetist is concentrating on maintaining the blood pressure of the patient and maintaining vital parameters. The nurse is running around trying to get equipment to stop the bleeding. The technician is running around arranging blood for the patient from the blood bank. And the floor staff is trying his level best to keep the suction working so that it doesn't get clogged with all the excess blood which is coming out. And what am I, as the main surgeon, doing? We have all heard of the noise cancellation headphones. They enhance the experience of listening to music. Similarly, I don this noise and activity cancellation demeanor, consciously cancelling out any sensory inputs of the activities around myself and focus on controlling the bleeding. The second scenario is outside the operation theater. Things have not gone as I had planned. I must spend the night after the tiring surgery caring for the patient in the operating room. And I also have to talk with the patient's relative. They don't know why the patient has not woken up. And I must assure them that right now I don't know the status of the patient. The patient has been put on elective ventilation. And it is only tomorrow that we'll be able to know the real condition of this patient. Anyone who says that the doctor is not emotionally involved in his patient's care and there is no feeling of personal attachment to the situation is not speaking the truth. The phenomenon of two-death syndrome works in every case. Whenever anything untoward happens to the patient, the healthcare worker also suffers equally. As one attains a more senior rank or a position of greater responsibility, the nature of work also changes. From being a mentee, one becomes a mentor. From diligently carrying out one's own work, one also becomes responsible for the work of other people. From handling one's innate stress, one's become responsible for the collective stress of the larger team or even an institution. So, what are the long term personal reconciliation mantras that help you in times of intense stress? Have friends. Your work decreases by several folds and becomes more enjoyable. Remain constantly connected. Network and seek help from people with different expertise. They're eager to help you, provided you ask for this help. You do not know everything possible. Go slow to go fast. If it is a difficult task, the more deliberate and meticulous you are, the faster you will complete it when you're going slow. You usually do not have to react to the stressor instantaneously. It will either lose its energy over time or you will find a solution for it. There's no need for you to react immediately to the stressor. Seek an optimum time bound outcome, not a perfect one. Perfection is a notional concept that varies with the eye of the beholder. Try to explore new vistas, not necessarily related to your professional life. The small achievements that you are awarded with in this new area gives you a sense of gratification that will sustain you when an overwhelming situation develops in your professional or your personal space. Stress is a part of one's life. One must always accept that there will be one thing always going wrong in one's life. Consciously harness the energy released during stress to improve your own performance. And finally, don't take yourself too seriously. Never derive your importance by your professional achievements. A new day dawns, and what happens next day morning in the intensive care unit? The patient wakes up, starts responding to all my commands, and gives me a grateful smile. And suddenly, it has all been worth it. Thank you very much.